Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Juliette Lamar, and joining us today is David Nixat. He is the founder at OrthogonalThinker.com. We're very excited to have him on. Welcome, David.
Aloha, Juliette. Thank you for having me on.
Aloha. I forgot to mention that David is in Maui. That's where he's located, so he's just chilling on the beach probably doing this podcast right now.
Something like that. But yes, we do take long walks on the beach.
So let's jump into, tell us a little bit about your company and what you guys do over there.
So Orthogonal Thinker is a holding company that basically it encompasses everything that I've basically experienced or been involved with for the last 20 years. So what I ended up doing, being in the startup industry for about 20 years, is really got to a point where I saw, invest in a company, founder calls you, says, the company is done. I'm doing a new company. Can you invest in that company? And with Orthogonal, it was an all-in play, meaning that I was going to put all my assets, all my advisory shares, everything I have into this holdco, and I would work on basically everything that was my, life's passion. And in the last decade, I definitely have come back to something that is, very special to me, which is playing with plant compounds and, being involved in the cannabis space. So I've been using cannabis for almost 30 years to deal with my personal issue where I was diagnosed with Asperger's and autism as a young boy. And, using these plant compounds to, medicate and, beautiful to see as we're very close to these products becoming federally legal in the not so distant future.
And, you're surrounded by such natural beauty and just the horticulture that's even on the Big Island. People don't realize the magic of plants as much as they should in our Western world.
Definitely. I mean, the idea of plant compounds on Maui, and I've been lucky enough to study with some of Alexander Shogun's apprentices and people that have been in the isolation technology for so long. What a better place to be. There's magic and it's all around us. And I think when we talk about cannabis, we look at that as almost like a gateway to so many different types of mushrooms, so many different types of fruits, vegetables, and just everything around us that when isolated correctly or when used correctly with other products, can help release, serotonin in the brain, deal with depression, PTSD. We see a lot of these products being used with people with leukemia, HIV, and, I was involved with something the other day that was so magical where somebody was visiting with us and, they were using these plant compounds and, had never felt they had been paralyzed for 17 years and couldn't feel their feet for 17 years. And, seeing somebody actually have movement, I mean, it's definitely, you get emotional, you tear up when you see things like that.
Because it's truly life-changing. That person's life has been changed in a couple ways, that when they had their disability and now their journey to really overcoming that disability. And that is life-changing. And the fact that we can do that is incredible with just the natural resources of the world.
Yes, I think this idea of Coca-Cola and Viagra and Adderall and everything else that we're feeding these little kids, it doesn't work. And if you look at, I'm a person that studies a lot of data and have pretty much spent the last 30 years, really decentralizing information, is that there's a handful of people in the world that are basically depopulating this world for their own agenda. And for them, nothing matters except money. So the idea of orthogonal is all about giving back. So I've, signed over all of my shares. I put up lockup periods on myself as far as my own tokens. And, I own pretty much the majority of Orthogonal Thinker, where I will never sell any of it. I will reinvest into this platform for the rest of my life. And I've always said, this is for everybody's children's children, where, they can work on something to empower the world.
Yeah, and it's not just the plants and horticulture. It could be any idea that kind of sets that same precedent.
Absolutely. So we currently own a 50% stake in a company called Maui Raw. And Maui Raw, if you think about Newman's or Amy's as a intellectual property brand in the grocery store, Maui Raw is dedicated to products that have no filler, they're not processed, no artificial flavors. You can actually understand all the ingredients that go into the products. And, we have one of the best-selling products on island. And with what we're doing with our token and our ICO, we're basically going to build a tech hub and, laboratory commercial kitchen where we will manufacture and study these products on the island of Maui.
Wow, that is really incredible. I feel like I always think, how did we get to this place, right? Because we started off life as humans without all this extra stuff, without these medicines that are cooked up in labs, and without the food products being injected with all this stuff. And a lot of it's from necessity, preservatives and whatnot. That makes sense in certain cases. But when did people stop listening to their bodies and stop really understanding our connection to the planet? How did we get so disconnected?
I think if I go back, it's kind of, I believe in deja vus. And my ex-wife, her great-great-great-great-grandfather signed the Declaration of Independence. And I've spent a lot of time in Princeton University. I grew up in Washington, D.C. So when you really analyze the last 200 years, what has happened is that there's been a segmentation of wealth that has gone to basically the 1%, which has now become the top 0.1%. And basically those people are now writing the rules of what happens to everybody in the world. And I think it's very sad that, you go into a supermarket, even in Hawaii, and 99% of the products have fillers in them or they're processed. So obviously, our government or the governments out there are okay with people, basically feeding us products that, cause us cancer or they cause issues with mental illness. And I think I couldn't think about, orthogonal means dumb luck, serendipity, two lines crossing at the same exact point that are unexplainable. So when we look at plant compounds and we look at crypto and blockchain, it's the most beautiful thing in the world, because now we can offer transparency to everyone. If you really want to know, like you go to a restaurant and you want to know where it all comes from and what happened to it and who touched it, I think we forget that so many things in the world are built from a frequency of energy. And, Albert Einstein, talked about that a lot. And yeah, we just have to remember everything we do has an intention, and there's cause and effect.
I think that is something that our modern world is missing a lot, is the cause and effect, because being more digitally connected, I think, is expanding our worldview. It's globalizing everything, which is wonderful. We can get information quickly. But at the same time, a lot of the interactions we have are online, so we potentially don't see the immediate effect of something that we're causing. For instance, like a chat room, if someone is cyberbullying in a chat room, they don't see that person cry or that person's facial expression change. They might get a comment back, but they're not really seeing that human level empathy happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Empathy doesn't exist for the most part anymore. And that's why when I talk to the kahunas or the shamans, or, I speak to a lot of people all over the world that are, we forgot about the wise elderly, the people that have lived life, and everybody's saying now, go back to the land, go back to what created, heaven on earth. And that's why we call our coin the Aina coin. And Aina means land in Hawaiian. And everything is a land. So without the land, you're not going to be able to grow things. You're not going to be able to, feed oxygen to the world. There's a lot of intention that is gone behind this ICO. In some weird way, I've been working on this ICO for my entire life.
So give us a little bit of idea of how the crypto is all working in this and the blockchain technology, how you're using them within Orthogonal.
Well, think of Orthogonal as a big ecosystem, and I think the best way to kind of analyze that is a company like Nestle or McDonald's or Campbell's, which they all go by different names when they're making investments. But Orthogonal is a conglomerate of companies that work together, trade information together, empower each other. And basically what we're able to do with the blockchain is we're able to share that information within our own ecosystem. We're able to decentralize the information where, as people like my grandmother are smoking joints, they're not smoking pesticides. They know where the product is coming from. And when you look at the data now, 99% of cannabis that's grown in the U.S., there are pesticides used with it. So what we look at is how do we be the 1%? And I'm happy to have 1% of, if you look at the food, plant compound, and pharma industry, that's a $5 trillion industry. I want to be able to take, the top 1% of that and decentralize that information. And I know those products are the ones that human beings need to be taking and, will allow them to have less suffering, allow them to live better, allow them to live longer lives. So for me, what I look at is the habit loops of human beings, this idea that as a 41-year-old man, I have to pay $400 a month to have health insurance, but I'm super healthy. So there's something wrong with that model. And the idea of the way doctors work with pharma companies and insurance companies work with hospitals, and the whole idea of it was built incorrectly. And what Orthogonal is going to do is we're going to get involved in all these industries that kind of work with one another and figure out how to fix them. It's not going to be quick. I knew when we built Orthogonal, this would be, a 10 or 20 year vision, but we never shy away from our intention or our baseline values. There's no compromise within the partnership.
What do you think the shelf life is for the way things are being done now? Especially, I think people's eyes are being open to the partnerships between doctors and pharmaceutical companies, and people are really starting to understand the inner workings of things. What do you think the shelf life is for this particular way of doing things?
I think that in the next decade, maybe even quicker, we will have not a revolution, a violent revolution, but the transfer of money and taking basically wealth out of the hands of the top 0.1% that make up 99% of the wealth is going to be, it's going to be world changing. I don't watch the news, but, I see things come through on like LinkedIn and, watching, different agencies do things. Everything is very calculated. Everything is about lobbyists. It's about who you're paying off. Who are you in bed with? And what we want to tell people is, hey, you make the decision for yourself, but this is the real information. This is who's making money when you buy something. This is really what goes on when you support, a company like Bayer or Monsanto. These people are involved with the depopulation agenda, and something has to change.
And that is in part to just being able to share information and people being able to do their own research and really giving that power back to people. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we're fooling ourselves. You go into Costco, there's a Kirkland brand. What does that even mean? Whole Foods, there's 365 brand. I appreciate, Jeff Bezos and Amazon and everybody else out there, but the reality of it is if you tune in to what's really going on in society, even here on Maui, we got mental illness everywhere. We have people that are homeless, that are just, nobody's helping them. We have obesity from the locals where, people like Costco have taken over, and, people are not educated about what to eat. So, I see it every day, and I know there has to be change, because the idea of survival of the fittest doesn't, that doesn't really work. You need a collective of people working together and empowering each other to have critical mass change.
We are social creatures, and we've always done better in communities. There's success typically does not come just from one person. You have to have a strong team, because one person does not have the resources, the brain energy, the way of thinking to be able to tackle complex issues alone.
Yeah, it's something big has to shift. It's going to happen quickly, just like things in history have happened all of a sudden. We feel it. We see the critical mass. It's going to happen. So, yeah, as I tell all my friends, put your seatbelts on, get on your unicorn, and enjoy the ride.
Oh, I love that. So if people, they want to follow your journey, or they have some ideas and they want to get involved, what's a really good way to connect with you and to keep up with what you're doing?
Well, I have a private channel on Telegram that I believe is called Orthogonal Co-Creation. I got to look at it. I forgot the exact name of it, but my phone number is listed on our WeFunder page. My personal email address is listed on my WeFunder page. Contact me. I get about 500 emails a day. I go through every one of them, and no matter who anybody is, I will talk to anyone. I will respond to anyone, as long as it's a cognitive conversation that is about co-creating, change in the world.
Absolutely, and that's as we spoke about, just such an important thing is finding the people who are like-minded, connect to them, and just educate yourself. That's one of just the basic steps. Educate yourself.
Yeah, for this journey for me, it's 50%. I need to raise money in order to deploy. But, in my own journey, the universe has always delivered. So I'm a steward of this mission. And this is not going away. This is not something that is going to be just another startup. My partner and I are all in. We believe in this, and we will do whatever it takes to move this forward.
That is such an inspirational. I can really hear that energy in your voice, and it's going to be fantastic. Your website for everyone. What is the best website to connect to you on?
Orthogonalthinker.com is great. A company that we invested in, we were one of the first checks, is called WeFunder.com, which the founder, Mike Norman, is a very dear friend of mine. We are WeFunder.com/orthogonal, and our movement now is, even if you have $100, you can invest in Orthogonal. So we have never taken institutional money. We've never taken VC money. I'm the only person on the board of directors, and our movement is about power to the people.
That is beautiful. And are you on any other social media networks that people can connect on, or is just the websites and the Telegram the best way?
I have a small presence on Instagram, Orthogonal Collective. I'm on Facebook as David Nixad, and I use LinkedIn a lot. I do like LinkedIn, and happy to connect with anyone who contacts me, but I will say, please contact me at my personal email address, which is david@orthogonalthinker.com.
Fantastic. David, truly, thank you so much for joining us here and sharing your passion and your ideas and your education with us.
I appreciate that. I mean, I feel like this interview has been a co-creation on its own. I believe, everybody has to put in 50%. The other person puts in 50%. And, the universe has led me to people like yourself. And I'm all about the future of this world, because I believe we live on heaven on earth.
That is fantastic. David, thank you so much.
Thank you. Aloha. Many alohas to everyone.
All right, aloha back to David. That is David Nixad. He is the founder at Orthogonal Thinker. Again, their website is orthogonalthinker.com. If you need to know how to spell it, it's OrthogonalThinker.com. This has been Juliette Lamar with Future Tech Podcast. Aloha, everyone.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.